to like, might as well experiment because no one's watching anyway. So I'm just gonna make a bunch of different content, and not so much like crazy stuff, but like specifically unrehearsed videos. Like I know YouTube, everybody likes a lot of production value in the content, but just personally, I don't. Like, I like videos where it's like you get a real sense of like who the person is that you're watching and what they're really like. Like, yeah, just like kind of like shit. And yeah, that's basically it. So actually, I'm gonna do a little best I can. My PlayStation camera's like plugged in here, but a little apartment tour. So this is my place. I live in Studio City. And this is like my first place that, oh man, it's really hard to like. Oh god, sorry. So, yeah, like, this is where I live. Basically every morning I wake up. Loves me, not today. It's Sunday. So yeah, I wanted to do a vlog on video games. This is why I like them. This is what I don't like about them. I'm gonna start loading here. So the three games I've been playing are actually four: Rocket League, Fallout 4, most prominently, and then I just started playing Mafia. And when I was younger, I used to love video games. They like were this kind of like escape for me. I've always been kind of like awkward, not like the worst, but definitely awkward. And I love video games because you could role play. My favorite game ever, like when I was 15, I was watching the Sopranos box set DVDs, like so addicted. I was playing Mafia 1 on PS2, and yeah, like watching a bunch of gangster movies. And my favorite rapper was like Andre Nicotina. So like, you know, it's so cool in video games because you can make your whole world about whatever you want. And like clearly when I was 15, I wanted to be a gangster. I was playing tackle football. I wanted to be the best tackle football player ever. I was like a mid-level tackle football player. I was just like, ugh, yeah. I'm Italian too, so I mentioned that in other videos. So like, I don't know, I wanted to be macho. And I've always just done that throughout my whole life. Like, you know, as I grew up, I would go in and out of video games, like in college and stuff. When I went to college, I like specifically like I gotta not play video games so I can be cool. I was like, oh, I don't get to just be cool because I don't play video games anymore. Um, and yeah, I've always gone back and forth with it. But the coolest thing about video games to me is that they're so realistic. They always have been for my whole life. You know, I'm like 1990 was born. And so I was lucky enough to have like 3D gaming my whole life with like the 64-bit processing, that 64 and PlayStation. And now I get to like go to Boston in like a post-apocalyptic world. And for example, I was just reading a book set in Boston, Infinite Jest, and that's like a whole thing, you know, like adults go crazy for that book. And I was playing this game, Fallout 4, while reading that book, and I swear to God, in terms of art, they were on equal pegging. Like, I would read all of this stuff about what's going on in Infinite Jest with all the characters and all the tropes and all the shit that serious people take really seriously. And then I'd just go like waste some zombies or just waste some ghouls in the exact same area. And it's weird how there's this like resonance that goes through both. It's like I'd be thinking about the book while playing the game and thinking about the game while playing the book. And I've always just been like fascinated. Wow, this is gonna be a fight in hell. I've always just been fascinated by the ridiculous hitboxes in this really wonky, stupid shooter. Yeah, so I've always been fascinated about how the interplay between like reality and video games, and I've always known video games were fake, but like when I was 15 and getting lit up on the football field by like dudes who just like did not play video games at all and were much realer than me, like, oh, should I? Yeah. Fire escape. So like I would always go back and forth between like it's really hard to focus on football practice when you played Mafia for like 2.5 hours and like watched an episode of The Sopranos and you're like, all right, football practice 2 days, let's go. And I would always do this, and I still do. Like I'm not big, never was very big, but I got heart. And that heart translates into the video games and into real life. And at this point, like, I can't even call it anymore. The intersection between these games and real life is so becoming vague. Like, it's permeated all these levels of society. And bringing it back to just, like, the games themselves, I think Skyrim was this level of such a realistic game where it's not like real life, but the reality of that world of Skyrim, I stopped being able to fully distinguish experiences in that fake world versus experiences in my real life. Like, obviously, I know my life is real and that game is fake, but because you play it for so long. And for example, like to compare it to World of Warcraft, like World of Warcraft was some cartoon shit the whole time. No matter how much you played and how many dreams you had about like getting better armor or like, or just like, you know, no matter how deeply entrenched you were in the game world, you never really thought that like you were doing something real when you were playing that game. Like even if you made it to the Grandmaster in PvP or whatever, like it was still very much this fake thing that you were spending your real life doing because it's fun. In Skyrim, like, geez, there's certain aspects of the Elder Scrolls that it's still fake, but it's so detailed. It's almost as detailed as real reality. Like, I'm not just really talking about the graphics. Like, the fact that Akatosh is this god, and he breathes fire into Mundus, this plane of existence, and there's 9 divines, like 9 gods who assisted him, and they became celestial beings that, like, energetically influence the goings-on and the cosmos of Mundus. And then there's 9 Daedra who didn't want it to happen, and they don't even really participate in Mundus. They're just like on a higher level, and they'll come in and out and just fuck with you. And like that's like God versus the devil right there. And then every game is based on like the plot of every game is based on some interplay of some of those gods kind of duking it out. And then the fact that like almost every NPC in the game isn't really aware of this high-level philosophical stuff, and you don't really even know it as the player. You just kind of like build your powers up and become this hero of the world, and then at the end of each game, at like the end of your hero's journey, you get another Elder Scroll, another page of this book that was written by Akatosh to communicate to the beings of Mundus what the fuck is going on and what's at stake in this universe and why he did everything, and like try to kind of advance everybody to the right level. Like that's really part of the game. Writers came up with that shit in the 90s. Not big fancy Hollywood writers, but like lowly Studio City resident video game writers. And I'm so inspired by that. I write myself. And like when I've read that stuff, I'd play those games for hours, days of my life before I ever like got into the fiction in the game. And I was like, wow, that is on par with every great book I've ever read. And it's such good fantasy. Like, it makes me think about my own life and my own, my own morality and the way I am as a person, like the decisions I make, differently. Like, it's almost like a religious significance you could attribute to that game. And, like, because I'm such, like, a ardent gamer, like, I did. Like, I really kind of, like, oh, man, should I, like, look to the Elder Scrolls as a form of religion? I was not really doing it, but I thought about that at a point. And so it's like these games that are just kind of cartoonish, and like, you know, someone thought like, oh cool, you know, how can we make the Bunker Hill Monument into a settlement? And then they really did it with all of these physics and light engines and all of this really sophisticated software that has been built year over year with very specific engineering methods and like just, you know, real hard work. You can make made up stuff, real easy nowadays. And you know, like, whereas if a writer wants to invent a scene, like there is a crowded marketplace with scores of people, and I can't come up with any kind of like lovely language right now. I'm kind of tired, but you know, they just write it in the book. It's a little paragraph there, and then everyone goes, ah, yes, a marketplace. In video games, you gotta build it. Like, you actually have to be like, here is this wall, and the light's gonna come bouncing off here in this direction, and it's much more constructed. It's not so just like, I'd created it. There you go. It, like, for writing versus video game design, writing, you can just you can much more focus on the imagined part of it, and you basically line up all these imagined passages together in a way that, you know, the process of reimagining it as you read it, as the consumer or the reader, feels good. And then in video games, you just build it. It's much more objective. And it's like, here it is, do what you will. And then you can do stuff like they did in Skyrim, and like, guess what else we built? Books. We built some books. They're also in there. Go find the books. The books say some wild shit. Like, for example, in Skyrim, there was a space race at some point. There's like these books of some, who knows, like astronomer who was like cataloging all of the beings of Mundus's attempts to reach the heavens, and the two best attempts were the Khajiit, got outside of the atmosphere by standing on each other's backs and making like a human pyramid all the way up to the heavens, and the Imperials got a little bit further than them by filling hot air balloons with frog farts, the methane from frog farts, and they made these hot air balloons that also were able to get them out of the stratosphere. And like, that's part of the lore of Elder Scrolls. And you know, it's just like, it's real. That's kind of like some casual lazy shit that they just put in there. But I love that, where like, instead of writing a book where everything that's part of the fiction has to be cohesively in there, you just kind of like, all right, we got some real serious shit about like these very high level beings, and that's going to impact like all of the greater story arcs of the game. And then there's just frog farts too. Like, amazing. And so the reason I'm going through all this is because, like,
practice.
What do I
It
want
was
to
an
say?
honor
It's
to
like,
fight at your side.
yeah, I'm gonna go really slow now in the game and like try to take it seriously, because what they say in philosophy is, well, there's this concept of thisness or suchness that people talk about in college, and thisness would be this shadow right here. Like, the lighting engine in this game is so good. Like, it really, this is the best lighting I've ever seen in the game.
I'm trained
And
for any combat
the fact that this shadow is so detailed, right? And that
I'll be ready.
the sun looks that way. You know, you get like, I don't even know what to call it, but like those rays of light coming off the R, and then you see the shadow there. Like, I really could just hang out here and just look at how beautiful that is for quite a while. And all I'm looking at is pixels on a two-dimensional screen, just being kind of reconfigured in a very, very detailed way, by very, very detailed computer programs. And they've gotten more detailed my whole life. But when I started, it was like Zelda and Banjo-Kazooie, and now it's like Fallout 4 with Red Rocket. And the point of this whole kind of vlog spiel is that it's at once totally different. Like, this is new age and that is the old way, but at the same time, it's the exact same thing. Like, you are just looking at a two-dimensional imagination of what could be reality, and this two-dimensional imagination looks super duper real, and then in the past, they looked way less real. And what does that really mean? And I don't know, right? Like, I don't have any answers, but what I do know is that maybe nothing. No, but what I do know is that projecting my feelings onto this two-dimensional screen has always been kind of the same thing. You know, it's always been like, oh wow, you know, it looks so real, and check it out. Boom, that's a detailed weapon, holy hell, like, whoa, they went in, look at that Gauss rifle, and then I get to put this suppressor on the front, and yay, and the whole aspect of playing these games has felt different. Like, playing FIFA 10, I remember that game was just like, oh my god, the physics feel so real. And it felt like forever. When I was a little kid, there was this upward trajectory of like freaking out about like, Grandpa, look at this video game, it looks so real, doesn't it? It looks just like football on TV, and like really getting enthusiastic, like a fanboy of how well these games were able to approximate reality. And oh yeah, this is my settlement here, by the way. Sanctuary Hills, still heavily under construction. I'd say I got like 12 more hours at least on this bad boy before it's fully done. I'll do a little tour today. I'm just gonna go around it first. Hopefully that's not too boring. But for all of my scores of viewers. But yeah, so like most of this is not finished. But anyway, back to the vlog on video games. So for a long time, like the whole history, oh shit. Whoa. Thank you, laser turret. For the whole history of video games, at least, no, not the whole history, in my lifetime, from 1990 on, the industry and everyone who plays them has blatantly just had this concept of advancement, of it is getting better. And if you look at modern games, no kidding, you know, like, damn, if I ever wound up like physically incapacitated, I'd be like, well, at least I got physically incapacitated at the right time. You know, I'd like build that computer in a hurry, get back in World of Warcraft, and just like game my whole life. And I'd definitely be bummed, but like I'd know what to do with myself. You know, that's a weird way to say it, but yeah, like it's such a rich environment. There's such a rich catalog of imagined physical space that you can experience in two dimensions with electricity, that it feels like there's this great wealth of content, and there certainly is, but at the same time it's great, vast, advanced, sorry, it's like great, vast, this is so cool. It's just, I'm like in the middle of an attack right now. I like don't even have to care. And yeah, so it feels like, in much the same way that I've spent hours just building this very rich mansion in a fake nuclear fallout world, like it also is not real. Like it's just not there. It's very illusory, and there's this really hard limit to how much it really does exist. And so I want to really like figure out for myself how that works. Like how much of my life is dictated by my mind and my ability to imagine and remember these imaginary worlds. And like, you know, when you add detail to it, like when you add these like little iron support beams and stuff, and like there's this really like, oh man, this feels like a real place, you know? Like I want to go in that door. In fact, I will.
In the Commonwealth. What kind of things
This
you
is the
ask?
Coliseum here. Like, it will be when it's done. It's a little, like, baseball-shaped Coliseum. So we got calling it the Nuka Stadium. Oh, shit.
I have heard that they have taken over the castle. They did it a long time ago, but hasn't been a while. It had been full of fish. Monsters.
This is the little, like, dungeon in the Coliseum.
I don't know.
I don't really know where I'm going to go.
Relevant.
But anyway, you know, how worth it is it to continue to commit all this time to video games and, like, build all this stuff and make it real? And how real are you really making it? And I go back and forth so much. Like some days I'm just like, yeah, let's get it, you know, like let's totally make it all the way real. I want to commit myself fully to building out this stadium with rich detail and have it just feel like a real place in real life, because really, what's the difference, man? Like it might as well be real, you know? And then other times I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing? I'm wasting my life. I should exercise more and spend more time socializing with people. And the reason I'm going into all this during this playthrough is because this settlement, like I decided to make this settlement build like the whole point of my playthrough. I've played this game, I think I have like almost 7 days of playtime, which is the second most playtime I've ever committed to a game. And I'm 27 now. Like, I had not been playing video games anywhere near this much until Fallout 4. And it had to do with a lot of other stuff going on in my life. I really wanted to, like, test it. I wanted to test the limit of how real I could make a game to myself. And at once, you know, I'm really happy that I built all this. And, greenhouse, you know, with, like, a lookout tower. And it feels really real to me. It feels like I created something real. But at the same time, I wish I was a little more deliberate and like maybe made a game, you know, like I learned coding in this process just because I was spending so much time building shit in the game world with like, you know, the crafting interface felt a little bit stripped down and lame after I got to like day 4 of played time. And so how much does the detail make it real? And I love that, you know, I did not build a game whatsoever here. I just created an environment within, actually no I didn't, I added to an already built environment. And I just can't tell how real it is. And I would love for A, anybody to watch this video, and B, like, if anyone could tell me how real you think this stuff is, you know, like, I really love this settlement, I do, and like, I'll always have it, and at the very least, it'll be like a really dope model train set that I built for myself using 7 days of my entire life. That's at the worst, and then at the best, it'll always be this like environment that I can come back to and feel happy, and like at the nighttime, for example, like Kat's at the bar, is it Kat or Kate? Kate's at the bar. And all of your 20 settlers like come in here and hang out, and I'm at the same time like embarrassed and proud to admit that like I feel connection to this fake world and these fake characters every time I come in here, and it's like a movie that you can watch different scenes of at all times. Like it's really meaningful to me. And
We
I've
simply
always felt
insist
this way about
do not
games, like
interfere with
Mafia
Institute
2, like,
operations.
because I was like so
To do
into
so
it, you know, I was
would
such a little
result in
fanboy and like made my whole life about like gangster image
unnecessary
because I was so
difficulties
addicted
for
to
all
that world
parties.
and that game.
Rest easy. Know that the future
I
is
really got a lot out of that role playing, like
underground.
just role playing with like both feet, just like jumping into it. And I've always played
mankind
video
will
games
thrive
like this, like Skyrim
under our
too.
guidance.
And you know, I think once you hit the point where you're having literal dreams about the game, like that's when you know you're in it. And I've always had mixed feelings about doing that because shit, it's not like I've been the most popular person in my life. It's not like I could be nicer and more loving to people around me. And I show clearly a lot of love to these games. And should I show more love to real life? And that's the big question. And I think that question, video games are kind of facing that question right now, just as an industry, because they've reached this point of sophistication where every E3, you know, every time you look at a new game, you're just bracing yourself for like, oh my God, what have they done this time? You know, how have they stepped it up to the next level? And I'm just putting it out there. I'm finally going to take a position that my theory is that they kind of reached an end game. Like, we're done. Like, we have reached a point where, for example, I can literally, I don't know how many lights are in the settlement, probably at least like 100 lights. I can turn them on and off. I love that. If it was nighttime, like this whole thing would go dark. And then like, just back on. And it's like, how much more than that could you possibly even want, right? Like, it's just now becoming about putting the VR goggles on or not. That decision. And whatever is being projected on those goggles, it doesn't, it's like me, after playing video games for such a long time, it doesn't even matter. It's been 20 years basically since I was 7 of like really being a gamer. And having committed so much of my life to these games, I do regret it, but I also don't. Like, this treehouse thing is so sick. Like, this is almost gonna, like, I think about like the house I'm gonna end up living in for the rest of my life. It might be this house, and like this physical house, and how much time I spend like decorating my own house. And I definitely like started cleaning up my apartment more and like caring about how shit looked more while building the settlement, because like I don't want to have a really dope video game house and like not a nice real house. But so the trade-off between your real life and your virtual life, and yeah, this settlement build was definitely an experiment for me, finding out that trade-off. And I don't know what
That
my
was the
findings
5
were.
stars.
Like, I know how I'm planning on finishing this thing
5
off.
of them.
I'm gonna
Get
build
it?
like a maze
Because
here
well,
for
it's funny.
this is like the science building. I'm
sort
gonna
of.
make all the
No.
types of science shit in
No.
here. Build this
Not
into
really.
a maze. And I definitely want to finish this because I've already committed so much time to it. So this is like the science building. That's the like
I've got some more
fortress
news for you. If you're
military
interested.
building where it's just like straight up, you can enter that way. This is like the shopping center, the
There's that little
ziggurat,
town
like a
called
mercantile
Covenant.
pyramid,
You know the one that I mean? Right? That
with
one?
like all the shopping,
Well,
haircut.
I
This
guess
is the
it's empty.
first. This is a large shack. This
It
was like
happened
the first
recently,
building
but all
I
of a sudden
built in the
there's
whole
this-
settlement,
Well,
and I wanted to
there's
keep
no one
it a
there
part of it, and I'm glad I did.
I haven't
You know,
heard
watchtower,
any kind, you know,
kind of like
explanation for it.
Capitol,
But it definitely
Capitol
happened.
Hill Civic Center.
I hope they weren't
Movie
like,
theater will be when I'm done.
all murdered by raiders or
Hospital,
something.
inn, factory,
That would-
uh,
That would be sad.
greenhouse,
So,
and this is like the kind of just
how
like
about Billy Ward and the
bullshit
Dominoes?
R&R soldier room
This
still.
one,
That didn't change a
yeah,
lot.
you
This is
said-
just like Sturgis.
well, I'll just,
And having added so much detail to this, I know that in the future I'm not going to do anything like this ever again. I'm glad I did. But, basically, it will always be worth it to me because I was able to find out what the value was for me of, not just in this game, but in all games, spending so much of myself to role play into a made-up world. And I still don't know, man. I still have no answers of like how worthwhile it is, how much better real life is compared to this, how much better this is compared to real life. But like I said, like, oh, and this is going to be, by the way, the Feral Ghoul Rehabilitation Program. I'm going to have a bunch of synths and like a bunch of ghoul cages here, and set it up that it looks like ghouls can kind of like come in, they like live in this house fakely, and then through like this like scientific method, we're able to like rehabilitate ghouls and then bring them into the settlement as like fully functional beings. And like that right there, that's like some shit a writer would make up and put in a book. That's something I just elected to do for myself. And the reason I did it is because, like, as a writer, there is no physical, substantial form to the things you create. It's just these things on paper. And that's always bothered me, because before I was a writer, I was a video game player. And I'm not really a writer. Like, I'm a real estate agent to pay the bills, and I'm this, like, lazy, half-assed writer, to be honest with you. I have my moments. But, and because I've not always been like, really? I gotta spend my whole life doing that? Just kind of like drink espresso here in my fucking house and scrawl away, like be a scrivener? I'm not really into that, guys. Like, I like the fiction aspect of stuff, but I don't know if that's me. And then something like this, where there is no story. Like, you can tell a story by how you arrange these objects, like a video game designer. But, I was never really like a technologist. Like, I don't really want to, well, I didn't in the past want to build software or new technology. But, you know, the whole visual aspect and the storytelling aspect of games has always fascinated me more than books. And so, yeah. And really, to kind of like be less non-committal about it, what I found in this experiment, this settlement build, is it's just a lot of work, and it actually doesn't matter what you do for work. Like, I started seeing all work differently, and just because this game is really attractive and like has beautiful lighting and like it feels very gratifying to like make it. Like, look at this shit, bro. Like, I gotta line it up. And oh man, I forgot about this problem. I gotta like figure out a way to set this up so that it all locks together. And I had built this, and then I had to like remove everything around the whole wing to like make it lock in. God dang it. And like, maybe I'm just being an idiot here for like being so fancy in how I make the settlement, and like back and forth, push and pull. And so really what I came away with is that all work and all human life and like all perspective has the same kind of inexorable value. And the good thing about video games is that they're so beautiful that, and so complex, it makes it very convincing that everything has value in the same way that a story would, or the same way that a well-built house would. And that skill or that focus of disciplining yourself, concentrating, and focusing on one task, like the task of building this like Minuteman Institute campus here, it all has value. And I'd say this settlement definitely has value, just like the whole rest of the game has value. And I'm pretty glad I was able to make something that, just as a player, you know, conveys that every hour spent, every hour of human value. There's like 7.5 billion people, 24 hours a day. There's a lot of hours being spent. That is the real irreducible value of life. And sorry I got like so deep about the settlement, but fucking after 7 days at the table, like, this is not WoW. There is no social aspect to this, and I'm trying to create one here. Like, it's not that easy. Like, this to me is the social value of this settlement. So yeah, if anybody watches this, that would be fantastic. And I'm gonna make videos, I'll make edited videos of like crafting for the rest of this channel. I think that's gonna be the central focus of this channel, because I've been playing this game a ton up to this point, and so much that I just had to stop. Like, I had to get some distance from it and be like, oh, I'm gonna live my real life. And I had some like very nasty dating episodes, like not the worst thing in the world, but I would just like, I stopped being able to relate to people the same way I could before, and that was not worth it. And so there's this other side of like, you don't want to be a hermit just here in your cave and like disconnect. But yeah, I think I learned a lot from this settlement, and as I finish it up, hopefully I can just have some fun with it. You know, make some fun videos about crafting, upload them, and you know, hopefully you guys or the audience I might find, you guys like this stuff. Let me know what you think about all this, and if it might be too much. All right, that's it for me today, I think. I don't even really need to save. I'm just gonna save out of habit. Oh man, what was that? That was not planned. Unplanned rant. Or spiel, I guess. Oh shit, I gotta go. Sometimes, but you'll get over it.